the version of us that we are when we peel back all the layers, all the personas, the identities, and the characters, we become nobody. But that's also who people are deeply afraid to be.
Why are people scared?
That lack of validation. If ego doesn't get validation for who ego is, it goes out of its way to look for separation. This is why people want more money, more accolades. When they don't have that validation of who they are, they really don't feel like they have purpose, which means that they don't have meaning. And underneath that, they tend to feel unwanted, unloved, and unacknowledged. So they typically put on a mask to make sure that they can show up in the world and receive the love that they desire. But at some point, the truth of who you are and the truth of the versions of yourself that you refuse to acknowledge will surface. Either that, or you're gonna spend lifetimes coming back, attempting to heal the same wounds and traumas over and over again. And if you just give yourself permission to acknowledge all of you that exists, you don't have to go through that unnecessary process.
Welcome back to another episode of Women of Tomorrow. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, Women of Tomorrow is a platform dedicated to the success and longevity of women all over. So if that sounds like you, please subscribe, watch this video, like, share, all the things. It helps us so much. And special thanks to Nobody and Candyss Love for sharing time with us today. Candice, but not today.
Not
right?
today.
Today, you are Nobody. And I think it's so amazing what I'm about to experience with Nobody. Thank you for just having that kind of creative mind and just like, devotion to your work. Because that's what it feels like. When you sent me the things that you wanted to talk about today, I literally like almost cried because it was just so on point I just felt it so much. And then the fact that it takes are you an actress? Like in your other life, you're a creative, you're an artist. But how did you get to the point of really wanting to show up today as Nobody? Like, what is the deep-coded message behind being Nobody today?
Yeah. Isn't that the version of us that everyone is afraid to be? It's essentially the version of us that holds all of the answers. The version of us that we are when we peel back all the layers, all the personas, the identities, and the characters. We become nobody. But that's also who people are deeply afraid to be. So they put on the mask and the identities and the characteristics so they can pretend to be a person that they actually aren't. And the whole aspect of the healing process is unbecoming. It's becoming nobody. And so I thought it would be very important to show up as nobody, to not even allow my face to be seen, and to have Candice stand down and feel what it feels like to show up with no mask and no identity, no character, to be seen for the truth of who she is and not who she pretends to be, so she can be loved and accepted.
So, and thank you for that explanation. Nobody. You're saying that people are afraid to be nobody because nobody feels like nobody. What is that? What is it about the fact that people are scared to be nobody? Why are people scared?
Yeah, what comes to my mind is that lack of validation. If I don't get validation for who I am, if ego doesn't get validation for who ego is, it goes out of its way to look for separation. This is why people want more money, more accolades. And when they don't have that validation of who they are, they really don't feel like they have purpose, which means that they don't have meaning. And underneath that, they tend to feel unwanted, unloved, and unacknowledged. So they typically put on a mask to make sure that they can show up in the world and receive the love that they desire. But becoming nobody means that they don't get to perform anymore. And most people just don't know who they are outside of performance. And they are unsure that they'll be loved if they don't perform the way that they have their entire lives. Essentially, they're afraid that love will be taken away.
So, but you're saying, as nobody, that there is a lot of value and power, or what are the sole benefits of being nobody?
Well, think about it like this. When you are born, you're given a name, a religion, a race, a gender, beliefs, and you don't get to choose any of these things for yourself. And you spend the rest of your life defending these things that were given to you. And a large part of the healing process is unlearning all the things that you've been taught, unlearning all the things that you've been programmed to believe about yourself. Most people were given shame, they were given guilt, and these things don't even belong to them. It's not even theirs to carry, but it's so much a part of their belief system and how they see themselves. They don't recognize that to heal, they're going to have to pull back all those layers until they just become nothing, no thing. And that's where that level of freedom lives, where there's not a mask that you have to wear. It's not a personality. It's not a job you have to do. There's not people that you have to take care of. There's no persona that you have to uphold. When you can just be, there's a lot of freedom in that. And a lot of people feel like the true freedom comes from money and status.
Yeah.
But the true aspect of freedom is knowing who you really are outside of all of those masks that people carry around every day. And it's who we all are.
Yeah.
We all have the ability to become nobody. But that takes a lot of courage to acknowledge the masks, the identities, and the personas, which are also personalities. They're not just facades. They're also personalities that people haven't fully integrated yet.
That is so powerful. And yeah, that, when the way you're breaking it down, I feel it. I feel that is what I definitely have been working with the last 3 or 4 years. I'm always bringing up my mother, but I feel like me and her are going through our own awakening at the same time. And so often she has expectations of me that are changed, like, well, I'm changing, and so therefore her expectations are being tussled with, and she's seeing, I'm not the perfect person. She's like, oh, well, you need to do this. Everyone's coming in town, so you need to make sure that there's this. And I'm like, I'm not making sure that anything is that. I might even be in my room while y'all are in town. Like, so many areas of my life, I'm like, I no longer want to do any of that. Like, it doesn't, I don't feel the need. And I also don't feel the need for people to accept, whether they accept it or not.
Right.
So, okay, let's dig more into nobody. Yeah. There's a book coming soon. And what's the name of the book that's coming soon?
The title that Candice gave it was Things I Probably Shouldn't Say, but Fuck It, I'm Angry. How to heal after someone you love has you fucked up.
Wow. I love the titles of your book. It is so real. It's what we're thinking in our mind. Yeah. So I was going to ask, so Candice wrote that, and was nobody involved, or through that did you kind of start connecting more with nobody?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, both. Candice began writing the book after learning that she was angry and that she had a lot of unprocessed emotional rage and explosive energy. And then through that, last time she was here, she told you she went to her 12th ayahuasca ceremony in Peru in the Amazon jungle. And a lot of things surfaced. And through that, she was able to find a lot of deep compassion. And so she was struggling with the personas of showing up as a good girl, showing up as positive. And deep down, she was afraid that if she were to show up as angry, she would make God mad. And she thought that based on how she was taught, if she were to be mean or set boundaries or not be kind, not be the bigger person, not apologize first, that she would go to hell. So a lot of her kindness wasn't authentic. It was a facade to please God and to make the outside world perceive her as good. And she was able to meet me as nobody when she gave herself permission to let go of those masks. And when she gave herself permission to be all of those things, when she realized that she was God and the devil at the same time, and there was no need to differentiate between the two or choose between the two. And then with that, she started to accept all of her different masks. And uncovering nobody gave her permission to really show up authentically. So in the book, she points out moments where she's being Candice, where she's still wounded, because Candice is the wounded human, the one with the fragile human essence, the one that is hurt, the one that gets her feelings hurt easily, the one that is extremely emotional, the one that puts up boundaries, detaches, keeps people at a distance so they cannot hurt her. She's the one that's evolving through that. And in the book, it's important to teach people how to read so they have the ability to acknowledge when the wounded Candace shows up, when the wisdom of nobody shows up, when the 10-year-old little girl shows up, when the 17-year-old that was abandoned by her friend shows up, when the 7-year-old that was abandoned by her father shows up. There are personalities that we all hold. And it's important to be able to dictate and notice when they show up, what triggers them, what are their intentions, what are their agendas. And so in the book, both Candice, nobody, and all of her personalities write it. And in the book, she instructs people to be mindful and just think about, who do you think surfaced in this moment? Who do you think wrote this passage in this moment? So when there's 1 minute where she's just like, forgive and have compassion.
Yeah.
That's the one that just left the ayahuasca experience. And then it might be 3 chapters later where she's like, nah, fuck them. And say what you need to say and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And if people cared about how they treated you, then they should have treated you better.
Yeah.
That is the 17-year-old one that never stood up for herself. So everybody in this book gets a voice.
That makes, I have so many questions that come up with that. But the first thing I want to touch on is, so would you encourage people to have constant dialogue with themselves throughout the day so that they can, because like you said, the performance of it all, like I have to act sane, I have to act like I have it together, I have to be polished, I need to be a boss, I need to do all that. And it sounds like what you're saying is to get to the true success or just maybe even peace of mind is to have conversations with yourself so you can consciously flow about your day and your life.
Yeah, I mean, if the intention is to heal, then you also have to know who you really are. But the issue comes in when we think we are just this one being and we kind of dismiss, disregard, and ignore all the other versions of us that are showing up to help us continue living life together. And so throughout the day, you may emerge as 30 different versions of yourself. But then you'll say, I'm so scattered. Well, which one of you is scattered? And you say, I'm having such a bad day. Which one of you is having a bad day? Because there may actually be a version of you that can handle this day. So you may be in a version of you that is not in her power, that is struggling to handle this day. We all have multiple personalities, and it's important for people to know all of the personalities that they have. And it's also important to also know that they all have different agendas. They have different intentions, different personalities, different goals. You may have one personality that does not like the others. You may have one personality that is actively working to sabotage the progress of all the others because it feels left out. Think about when people say kill the ego. How do you think that makes that version of you feel? To say that it's not even a version of you that you want anymore, that you're willing to murder a version of yourself just so you can move forward. And then people get confused on why they feel abandoned, neglected, and they can't figure out why they can't escape it. It's because they're abandoning and neglecting versions of themselves that are just trying to help them continue living life. But there are versions like the inner child who is also the self-sabotager. The one that's like, you left me like everybody else, and I'm not going to let you continue to move forward in life, evolve, heal, or progress until you come back and acknowledge me. So you'll have people throughout their day that are trying to put on the best mask available, trying to be productive, make that version of them surface. But the inner child has been around the longest. That's the one that has the most power. And so the inner child is like, no, ain't no production, because you haven't even acknowledged me properly. Look at what we all went through in our childhood. Look what I had to endure just to make sure you could get the job that you have. And you mean to tell me you're not going to come back and save me? You're not going to come back and acknowledge all the things that I went through? So I'm not going to let you progress. I'm not going to let you put on that mask or allow that productive version of you surface, because you've forgotten about who you really are. So when it's time for us to go on about our day and we're trying to figure out who we're showing up as moment to moment, we have to start naming these identities, giving them ages, understanding what ages they were created, what situations made them emerge, and really creating a relationship with them.
Yeah.
So when you need the strong one throughout the day, you have enough rapport with that version of yourself to where you can say, I really need you right now. And you can allow that version of you to emerge. When you need the one that sets boundaries, ego sets boundaries. And when you need the ego, because you've created a relationship with it, you didn't ostracize it by saying, I have to kill it. You didn't create a bad relationship to where now y'all are at war.
Yeah.
And you need the ego to help you set boundaries. And now the ego is saying, no, you got it. Right? And so if we start to integrate, and really not even integrate, harmonize with these personalities and identities that we have, we can really have a beautiful life, because everybody understands what their job is, and we have enough relationship with all versions of ourselves that we can allow any of them to take the forefront at any moment.
So when you say harmonize, that's a key word, because I feel, and I've seen people, specifically speaking of the inner child, when so much of how people show up is coming from that inner child, and the things that they can't get over, habits, obsessions, and they're like, dang, when it comes back up, they're like pissed. They're like, you got to do better. Fuck this. You got to. And they, instead of like harmonizing and going back to whoever that little person is and saying, it's all right. What's going on? It's okay. They just want to beat it out of them and say, stop, learn, figure it out, forget it. How do you show up for your other selves in a way that will be productive and get you into harmony? Like, how do you speak to them?
Yeah, so you'll learn that some versions of you need a lot of grace.
Okay.
Some versions need a lot of patience. And some you will have to go to war with. And a lot of people will say things like, as a society, we're at war. And they don't really recognize that the only person that's on the battlefield is you versus you. It's really you fighting against yourself. And some versions of us, like the inner child, are extremely powerful and do not want to evolve. They don't want to heal. They want to stay in a victim stance, a victim mentality, because that's where they get validation. That's where they know they can receive love, and that's where they can also feel empowered, because most of us in our childhood, we felt powerless, right? Yeah. And so the way that we learn how to talk to them is by having a relationship with them. I'm not going to hold a conversation with you like I would hold a conversation with a stranger. I know a little bit more about you than I do a stranger. So I know the tone of voice you may need that will allow you to respond to me the right way. I know the tone of voice that may be needed to allow you to receive the information that I'm trying to give. There's not one size fits all. Some people, you actually got to cuss out for them to listen.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be nice and sweet, they don't understand that type of language. And so sometimes you got to meet people where they are and match their energy for them to understand that you're not to be played with and you're not to be fucked with. And so with these different versions of ourselves, sometimes they deserve that firm guidance as well that says, you done ran the show long enough. You done threw a pity party long enough. You done threw a tantrum long enough. And you done sabotaged our progress long enough. I got to put my foot on your neck today. I got to keep you in that headlock today. Just like a sister or a brother would do to you. If you were getting on their nerves, they put you in a headlock and sit you down. So it's important that we have relationships with these versions of ourselves so we know the type of language, holy language, that they need so they can actually hear us and we can evolve together.
That makes me think of the first step for a lot of people will be being okay with the fact that there's many selves within self.
Yeah, that's kind of a hard concept, because if you think about it, society has called multiple personalities a disorder. They have deemed it as something that requires a diagnosis, but that's actually new. It's new that society has done that. And remember, everything in society is designed to make you forget who you are.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until maybe 150 years ago that they started claiming multiple personalities to be a disorder. And the reason for doing that is to make sure that society stayed productive so people could consume. And so it got to a point to where if you were even thought to have any type of mental illness, let alone multiple personalities, you would lose your job and you would be committed to a psychiatric ward, which was nothing like the psychiatric wards now. This is where they would hold you in dungeons. They would tie you to walls, and they would treat you as
prison.
if, they would treat you like you were in prison, like a dog in prison.
So they were saying that basically things that were natural, just like imagination. If you have an imagination and it led you to think differently or ask questions, that would be considered a mental illness because you're supposed to be in this tiny little
Absolutely,
box.
yeah. And you would lose your job. You wouldn't be able to provide for your family. So the intention was to instill enough fear to force you to act, quote unquote, normal. But multiple personalities has been depicted in the Bible, in Hinduism, all of the different deities that has multiple heads. Even in ancient Egypt, on the wall, they have all of these different deities that have multiple heads. They're speaking about the different personalities, the different energies that live throughout the body. So a lot of people may feel uncomfortable thinking about the multiple personalities. But if you put it in a very easy perspective, say you lose your keys or you put your keys down. The version of you that puts your keys down and then 5 minutes later, you're like, hold on, where did I put my keys? The version that put the keys down is a completely different person than the one that's looking for them.
Because we be beating ourselves up when we can't find. We're like, dang, I'm losing it.
Or when you say something like, I'm going to put this here so I don't forget where I put it. Mm-hmm. And the next day you're like, I put it in a specific spot so I wouldn't forget where I put it. Mm-hmm. The version of you that put it in a safe space is a completely different version that is looking to find it the next day. And so the same happens when you're driving. One version of you is driving, and then the next minute you're like, I don't even remember if the light was green or not. Mm-hmm. Another version of you taps in when a person gets into an argument with their spouse and they become triggered. And then all of a sudden they start acting childish and saying hurtful things. And the spouse says, oh my God, I don't even know who you are right now. Why are you being so childish? Why is this so difficult for you to understand? Because typically when you are emotionally triggered, you revert back into the age that you first experienced that trigger and that emotional wound. So you have a 35-year-old adult conversation, and as soon as someone gets triggered, they revert back into 10-year-old them. And now they can't understand logic like adults can. Mm-hmm. They can only understand emotional outbursts like children can. Mm-hmm. So we have behaviors all day long that prove that we are merging into different versions of ourselves. But because we haven't pinpointed it, we haven't named them, we don't acknowledge it. And my mom has a very close friend that has multiple personalities, but she has been diagnosed. Mm-hmm. And one version of her is a chef. The other version of her is a master mechanic. The other version of her can sell paintings for thousands of dollars. Another version of her can do hair. Mm. But if you ask the painter to go and change the oil, she'll never be able to do it. Mm. If you ask the chef to go and paint something, she'll never be able to do it, because she has had to learn how to navigate her different altars and know what ages they are, know what names they are, what age they were created. Her dad killed her mom when she was younger, right in front of her. And so that's when the multiple personalities surfaced, that trauma, that wound. And so there's also a 6-year-old that she has. And when you speak to her, her voice is extremely high pitched, like, hi, Candice, it's so good to see you today. And you can tell, obviously, that it's a little girl. And so the only difference from people who have these diagnoses is the fact that they've worked with people long enough to be able to discern who they are at any given moment. So they know how to show up in life. They know how to explain to people, I can't even hear anything you're saying right now because 10-year-old me just surfaced and I just want to feel and express my emotions. If we had the ability to understand who we are on deeper levels, we'll have the ability to show up in life a lot easier. But then too, we will have the ability to have a lot more compassion for people, because now you can't just write a person off as being bad. Mm-hmm. Now you understand there's multiple personalities at play. And just like you may do things that you may not be comfortable with. Why did I say that? Yeah. Why did I do that? Now I have to go back and apologize. You understand that you don't really have control over who's surfacing moment to moment because you haven't created a relationship with them. Other people are going through the exact same things where they have personality switches, and one minute they may say something hurtful. It may not be the totality of that person. It is a fragmented aspect of that person that you've just never met before, or a version of that person that you just don't like. So that allows us to have more compassion for where people are in their journeys and not take it so personally.
That's big. Mm-hmm. That's huge. Wow. It was so crazy because I was just watching something. I don't know if I was watching it or reading like a newsletter where we're moving into a time where good and bad are not going to exist.
Yeah.
Dark and light or not. I'm not going to say that they're not going to exist, but that's not going to be the way in which we operate anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's very much so good and bad. You got to go to prison. You did this. This person did this, or all these things. So for you to say that, it just helps me to even more understand how that could
Yeah.
come about. I want you to, for the multiple personalities, now, do you believe, it sounds like you're saying that it does come from life experiences, maybe like stagnant emotions and energy that were never addressed, and then they come back later, and people don't know how to connect with them or identify it. Do you think it also comes from, or does the bloodline play a part in it, where you're having like different spirits from your bloodline that are showing up in you? Is it an intelligence of just how we were made, that we would have all these different selves, or like, what do you think that is the true source, or the majority of what you see?
So one source can be emotional trauma, because it's already scientifically proven that when a person experiences emotional trauma, the brain completely rewires itself. So the way that your brain grows, if you've experienced no emotional trauma or no emotional wounding that's imprinted the brain, your brain will grow completely different than mine. So that means that personalities are being rerouted. Characters are being formed because I have to learn how to survive in my environment. So I had a client recently that said something to effect. She said that I can take anything. She said, I can take any form of abuse. I can take any form of pain, and it'll never be able to break me. I'm like, just because you can doesn't mean that you should have to. You've created a personality to be able to withstand abuse. That's a character that you learned how to play as a coping mechanism and a defense mechanism. So this is proof that throughout lives, we're trying to figure out how to maneuver in an environment that makes us feel unsafe. So whatever personality a person has to conjure up, and the brain and the body's only job is to keep you alive. So if it has to help you create a personality, that's exactly what it's going to do. That's what multiple personalities is. It's a way to defend yourself, continue to live, and make sure that you're safe maneuvering through life. But then we have to also remember that we've been here multiple lifetimes. I think my husband told me that in Indian cosmology, that most people have to live 6 billion life cycles to be able to evolve out of the human form. Many people are on their millionth life cycle, which means that there's a lot of karma that has built up, and not karma like your personal assassin, somebody's trying to get you, but karma as in there's still a lot of things that you have to learn. So some personalities can be karmic imprints that are trying to heal their wounds, evolve, find fulfillment, find enlightenment. So one thing that is passed down is addiction. Yesterday I celebrated 7 years of sobriety. That is a karmic imprint that's passed down through the lineages of my family. And with that, that's a character that has been brought from lifetime to lifetime, that I'm still working to heal, that I'm still evolving through, that I'm still allowing to find a fulfillment. And so not all personalities just come through trauma. Some personalities are karmic imprints as well.
And the intelligence of who we are just allows us to create these ways to survive.
Yeah.
So it is kind of full circle, how it's all just trickling down and how we are manifesting ourselves. Congratulations on 7 years.
Thank you.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Candice went out of her way to die every day. And I'm convinced the reason that people don't heal is because they're afraid to die. And that's essentially what it takes. When Candice went to her first ayahuasca ceremony, a shaman sat in front of her and told her, if at any point the medicine or the emotions make you feel like it's too much to bear, too much to handle in your body, lay back and give yourself permission to die. And if you feel like you need to die, then just die. And in the moment, she was like, what the hell that's supposed to mean?
That was your first ayahuasca?
First time. And then after that, it made so much sense because sometimes emotions are difficult to bear. Sometimes life is difficult to bear. And the request, the invitation, is to surrender and die to it. It's to release control and expectations to outcomes. And so Candice would drink alcohol every single day when she got off work. And every day she would say that this was her last day. And then it took her a while to recognize that I don't have to kill this version of myself. I just have to let this version do whatever destructive behavior she has to do and allow her to die to herself so she can be born and rebirth herself and recognize that there's life on the other side. But people are afraid to die.
People are afraid to die. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely in religion, well, growing up, I grew up Seventh-day Adventist. Like, that was like the main thing. Like, you're gonna die, you're gonna go to hell, and it's just imprinted like, oh, no one wants to die. But it makes me think of the different addictions that I've had in my life, and yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like when you're like, I no longer want to do this anymore, there's a part of your body that is like, feels like it's going to be gone. And then I resisted it because as much as I didn't want to be addicted, I also had a physical, emotional reaction to the idea of who am I once this is gone? Like, I didn't have any like way to explain it, but hearing you, it's like something happens where you're like, but this is who I am.
Well, think about it. That's who that version of you is. And who wants to kill the part of themselves that has figured out a way to make you feel comfortable in a life that makes you feel uncomfortable? The resistance is, I'm not willing to let me go. I'm not ready to let me go. I love this version of myself, even if we both live in hell together.
Say that again. You said, who wants to kill the version of themselves
that has learned how to keep them safe in a society that they're afraid of?
Wow.
So the resistance is not just because you can't get it together. The resistance is, I know that when I evolve, my relationship with this version of myself is either going to change or they may not be willing to come. And so people are afraid of other people dying. They're afraid of them dying. But a soul knowing is that there's a version of me that is dying. And I would rather avoid grief and stay in hell with this version of myself than to allow it to die. So people will refuse to evolve because they're not willing to let that version of them go yet. They know that grief is on the other side of that. And so the addictive behavior is to escape the outcome of death that they know is inevitable.
That is why we need to be having these different conversations with our different selves.
Yes.
So we won't, because we just make everything like, oh, I'm just broken, I can't fix it. And the way you just explained it put so much, like, now I have an idea of how, I have an idea how I can have these conversations with myself as things come up, as the triggers come up. I can have a conversation with myself that can that can feel loving.
Yeah.
Versus, damn, you at it again.
That's it. That's it. And that's what happens when we start to see these versions of ourselves as just fragmented beings doing their best to survive, as opposed to Candice just can't get her shit together. It's the version that is actually trying, and you recognize how much you actually do love yourself because you're so resistant to evolving because you know that version can't come. And now when you have a conversation with that version of yourself, instead of saying like, you need to get your shit together, now it's like, I have to have a proper ceremony an ending for you. Because this is a version and a phase of our journey that you won't be able to come. And I'm going to miss you. And I apologize.
Thank you. I know people will feel that.
Yeah. I think Candice wants to say something too.
Yes.
Can someone get me a tissue?
Yeah.
Whew.
Take care, girl. That's real. That's real.
There's a different conversation that has to happen when we acknowledge what version of us is struggling. And when there's real compassion present and we have to sit down and have that very important conversation, it's a breakup. It is a death. And even when a person ends a relationship that they probably really wanted to be a part of, the most abusive relationships, people aren't ready to leave. There's parts of them that's not ready to move forward. And there are relationships that are beautiful, but it may be one aspect of it where you know it's not in alignment with where I plan to go in my journey. And so even in the ending is a lot of grief present. And the amount of power, emotional endurance, and spiritual stamina that it took for me to have a conversation with a version of myself that was addicted to alcohol and tell her that she cannot come. This is the version of me that was present when nobody else was. I was a master, still am, of knowing how to hide in plain sight. So nobody would be able to see the truth of who I was. And the version of me that was addicted to alcohol is the only one that knew who I truly was. There's a saying, when you're with your mom, you're a completely different person, back to multiple personalities. When you're with your grandparents, you're a different person. When you're with children, you're a different person. When you're with your friends, a different version of you emerges. When you're in a relationship and you feel loving and compassionate and caring, a different version of you emerges. But who you are when you are by yourself is the truth of who you are. And when I was by myself, the version of me that helped me escape a life that I didn't feel safe in is now the same version of me that I'm saying, you cannot come. So the amount of grief that a person feels when they end a relationship with another outside person, the guilt that they feel is heavy. The guilt that you also have to be willing to bear when you have to end a relationship with yourself, the version of you that helped you escape and kept you safe, even if it was in the most unhealthy and toxic behaviors. It was still there to protect you in the best way that it knew how to. And there's a dying that both of you have to do to make sure that that happens, to be able to convince a version of yourself, I'll die for your own benefit. I'll stay behind so you can evolve. That's big.
That's huge.
And that level of compassion is missing in the healing experience. Because if your inner voice is your mom telling you that you have to be perfect, if your inner voice is the critic of your dad telling you that you should have done something better or differently, that you're wrong, then you won't even know how to have these ceremonial endings with yourself that really makes you feel at peace when it's time to put those versions of you at rest.
What I hear you saying is just confirming none of this can fully go forward without having a true understanding of who we are.
Yeah.
Like the kind of beings that we are, what
Yeah.
we're capable of. And when you talk about people only use 1% of their brain, if that, it's like, you know, we've been just, I guess, through time, just dumbed down, neutralized, and I feel empowered just by you reminding me that I could have multiple conversations with myself.
Yeah.
That I can break up with myself in the same way that I break up with someone outside of me that I loved, and give it the same kind of treatment, if not even more sacred treatment, versus just being like, you know, people don't talk to themselves. People don't talk to themselves. People we're thinking, but are we sitting back and observing and then going back and forth? I've done that before, and it's therapeutic, but doing it regularly feels like a game changer.
Yeah, and then who's thinking? Whose thoughts are these,
Who are the
right?
thoughts?
People say all the time, you know, I have these thoughts. Who is the I that has these thoughts? For all you know, it could be 13-year-old you, not 35-year-old you. So when you recognize what their personality is, what their specific wounds are, when they show up, how they show up, why they show up, you can easily be like, oh, this is 7-year-old me. Let me go 10 to this version of myself, because obviously she needs attention. I know when Candice doesn't feel chosen, 7-year-old her that was abandoned by her dad, the narrative of suffering that she had is that her dad abandoned her and chose alcohol over her. So in her mind, when she feels abandoned, she also feels not chosen. So when 35-year-old Candice doesn't feel chosen, she knows that's not true. It's not a true narrative.
Yeah.
It's not a true belief, but it is the belief that 7-year-old her holds. And that is also when she knows 7-year-old her is knocking on the door of her heart saying, hey, I don't feel chosen today. Can you come back and acknowledge me? Can you come back and nurture me? As opposed to going off on my husband saying, why didn't you choose me? This doesn't make me feel chosen. I can pause and not go off on the external factors because there's a triggering happening. That version of Candice can go back to 7-year-old her and say, what do you need? I felt something from you today. I felt like you were trying to get my attention today.
Yeah.
How can I make you feel chosen?
Tell me, because Candice wanted to speak, and now nobody is back. What kind of work have you done, or are you doing to be able to channel nobody? And what does that feel like, I guess, physically or emotionally when you're like showing up?
I think I was so afraid of being everything other than good. So I wouldn't acknowledge anything if it wasn't good. And to the point that my personalities that I choose to shapeshift into were only the good ones. So you could rarely be able to say Candice did something wrong or Candice did something to me. I can almost vouch for the fact that I didn't do anything to you because the mask that I wore wouldn't allow me to do anything outside of what would be deemed good to society and God. And that's heavy. I mean, you can only pretend for so long.
Yeah.
So to acknowledge that I was angry contradicted that I was this positive warrior for God. To say that I was rageful was the complete opposite of what they teach us that you're allowed to be to go to heaven.
Yeah.
To say that I was vengeful, they say that you don't get to, God is the only one that can have the revenge.
Yeah.
And so I heard the voices in my head saying, well, I want revenge too. I want to get my lick back and I want to make them feel how they made me feel. That's vengeful. And I'm not going to forgive. because that's my subtle way of, one, maintaining power when I feel powerless, and also it's my subtle way of making sure that justice is served. So I will not forgive. I will hold this resentment, and I'll practice those arguments in the mirror. Well, at that point, I was already so far outside of what would send me to heaven based on what church told me.
Yeah.
I was already on my way to hell. So it's like, well, damn, I'm already here in the darkness. I might as well see what else is here.
Yeah.
What else is lurking in the shadows? Who else is in the shadows that I have not acknowledged? I went 32 years really not believing that I had any ounce of anger in my body, not being conscious of the fact that an alcohol addiction is a direct manifestation of repressed anger, because anger lives in the liver. So that should have been a telltale sign anyway. But the fact that it wasn't, I had to explore that I was angry. And then it was like, well, am I also jealous? Am I vengeful? Do I know how to forgive people when they betray me? Do I know how to forgive people when they hurt me? It was like, no, I have a lot of tendencies to be resentful when a person hurts me and I've done nothing to them. My inner child has been so wounded by people who have turned on her, abandoned her, neglected her, lied on her, harmed her, to where she's like, once you got a side eye, you got it. And it ain't going nowhere.
It's not going nowhere.
And I had to accept that I'm not this little perfect angel.
Yeah.
I hold grudges. And although I don't want to, they're still there.
Yeah.
I had to be honest about the fact that I can be resentful, and I will practice arguments in my mind when I feel powerless and I'm trying to feel powerful. I will hold on to anger when I want to feel powerful, because I feel like I've given my power away, or I feel like someone has snatched my power from me, or when I feel like a coward because I didn't stand up for myself and create boundaries.
Yeah.
That led me down a rabbit hole of saying, well, why do I have to choose? Why do I have to simply be good? Why can't I be all of the things? Why can't I allow myself to be all of my darkness and all of my light? Wouldn't that be a whole being?
Yeah.
Jesus ain't had no issue with flipping tables.
Exactly.
And God will
we
send
had to
your
be-
ass to hell in a quick second.
Yeah.
So there's so many aspects of, even in the Bible, which is what was programmed into me. I'm like, well, I'm reflecting back what is natural for me. And I don't have to judge or condemn these versions of myself just to feel like I'm a good person. I am a great person.
Yeah.
But I also would like to go off on people.
Yeah.
I also would like to curse people out. I would like to set boundaries, and I would like to not feel bad about it. I would like to say how I feel in the moment and not be the bigger person in the moment and feel like a coward when I got home because I didn't say anything. I played the bigger person. I kept the peace. There was a version of me that was like,
Yeah.
I'm not willing. I'm not willing to keep the peace anymore. If it's meant to be war, then
not if there's
it's
not
gonna
peace
be war.
within.
Yeah, I'm not gonna keep peace with everybody else and start a war within myself.
Yeah.
If I gotta take out my sword and slay the demons of other people, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do without condemning myself, because condemnation is not required to heal. Condemnation is not required to evolve and to be full of light. So honestly, you can't even have the virtue of having light if you don't even acknowledge the darkness. The full integration, the full harmony is acknowledging all of ourselves, not just the parts of us that are accepted by society, not just the parts of us that make us feel good, and not just the parts of us that receive validation because the perception of other people accept us. I was performing to receive love in return. And then when I got home, only the mask received that love. I didn't feel it because I wasn't being authentic with who I was.
The authenticity is, when you are just in one with nature, you're aligned with your natural self. And I feel like, what I'm seeing is just in all relationships, it's like, it's a cause and effect. Like, you can't just send this unhealed, wounded, loud, angry energy to me, and I just like it seems like the natural effect would be to, I'm gonna give it back to you, versus I'm just gonna take it and hold it. And where does it go when you do that? And how are relationships able to be aligned, make progress when the authenticity is not there, when you're trying to perform?
Yeah.
It's like, let's just get into it. What's really there?
And what happens when you fully embody all of who you are, not just the versions of yourself that keep the peace, receive love, receive validation, or perceived as good. When all of you shows up, now you are conscious of how you present yourself. Mm-hmm. So if anger is present, you don't have to actually be angry. Mm-hmm. You just know that anger is necessary to get the job done in this situation. Mm-hmm. It's the version of myself that I'm choosing to show up as. I'm choosing to respond, because anger is also how the body protects you when your boundaries have been crossed. Mm-hmm. So it's a natural response. Mm-hmm. And when you have access to the ego, because you've created a relationship, you didn't kill it. Mm-hmm. You have access to the inner child, the one that can't wait to protect or sabotage. Anytime you need these versions of you to surface, they're ready to do their jobs. Mm-hmm. And so now you can pick and choose how you want to show up moment to moment. And it doesn't have to be you losing yourself in the process. You don't have to do all of these apologies after the fact, because you were so present in your body that, oh no, I said what I wanted to say. Mm-hmm. I meant what I said. Yeah. I can stand on what I said, because it wasn't a reaction. It was a very intentional response, because I have now integrated all of my darkness and all of my light. And when the darkness shows up, I'm not shocked. Mm-hmm. I actually called it forward. Mm-hmm. When you call it forward, that's real power, as opposed to when it just shows up and it's like, oh shit, I didn't know I had the ability to be that person. Mm-hmm. I don't know what got into me. Now it's like, oh no, I called this version forward. That's my protector. That's what you get when you act like that. Mm-hmm. That you get this version of me. When you choose to disrespect my boundaries or disrespect me, I'm calling forth the version that is not afraid to go to war. And it can be whatever you want it to be. I'm on whatever you want. Yeah. That version of you that surfaces is because of the relationship that was created.
So I see a lot of times people on social media, I will say, because that's the most interaction that I have. I'm pretty much to myself on a day-to-day basis, but it's like, when someone does, people have a great way of throwing little jabs or projections, and without it being completely obvious. But when you feel it and you clock it and you're like, and you respond accordingly, then they're like, oh, be the bigger person, or you don't gotta listen to that, or you don't gotta be like that. She didn't mean it like that. And it's just like, no, something ain't right. Something was meant like that, whether it was intentional or whether it was her not thinking before she speaks. I'm not liking either of them, if it was intentionally bad, or if you're just not self-aware enough. I don't want to be involved. So how do you handle those kind of scenarios? Have you come across those scenarios where someone didn't mean well, but because it wasn't completely obvious, or because you're supposed to be the healed one, you're supposed to have a different reaction? Yeah.
So when you are fully embodying all versions of you intentionally, you still get to choose what worlds you want to exist in. So there's some people where I'll just laugh because I don't care. Okay. And then there's other times where I'll respond, and it may sound extremely firm, but I'm laughing when I say it. And it's just really important that you have all access to every part of you. So when it is time for you to respond in those moments, you can show up in your power, or you can say, that's not really something that I care to give my energy to. Yeah. But it will always be a choice.
It'll always be a choice. Yeah. And that brings me to forgiveness. I wanted to ask you, because you just bringing it up. You've sat with ayahuasca 12 times. Do you want to do it again?
Nope.
Okay, I feel like I hear that a lot, like when you're done, and there's no need to go back. Do you mind sharing, I guess, what the medicine was able to help you with?
So the medicine really just opens up your heart to deeper levels of compassion. So people that I felt like should have been apologizing to me, I was on my knees apologizing to them. And the medicine is a vehicle that reminds you who the truest version of you is. The nobody, the one that sees forgiveness to have a lot of hubris attached to it, to think that you are so powerful and big and wounded and full of victim mentality that a person has to be forgiven by you. The ayahuasca gives you a certain perspective that allows you to see the other side of the street. The things that you don't take into consideration, because the hurt and the pain gives you tunnel vision, and the ayahuasca broadens that vision to where now, instead of just taking things so personally because you want to continue validating, justifying and putting your pain on a pedestal, the ayahuasca actually shows you everyone else's pain as well. And so now you can't be selfish and just making life about you. You have to now take yourself out of the center of another person's universe, and you have to consider what their karma is. You have to consider what their energetic history is. And when you do that, you get to see that you are probably only 1% of the reason that influences a person to do what they do, behave the way that they behave, treat you in the way that they treat you. And when that medicine opens up your system, you get to see what people are really battling. And you get to see how most people hate themselves. And that's why the quote says, when a person is miserable, they battle themselves vicariously through others. The medicine forces you, and it forces your heart wide open. It really not diminishes the ego, but it shrinks it down really small. So the only thing that can be present is love. And now you see all of the life experiences that a person is going through that's influencing their behaviors, that's influencing how they show up. And there's a lot of room for compassion. There's a lot of room for understanding. There's a lot of room for acceptance, because now it's not just about you. Now multiple truths can exist at the same time, that you were wrong for what you did to me. It was painful on what you did to me. And I also understand that there's so many other factors that you are battling that calculated your behavior to treat me in the way that you did. So a lot more compassion is present because you see the full totality of the story, and not just the wounded narrative that you chose to run with, not just the anger that you chose to run with to continue feeling powerful with the person that made you feel powerless. The medicine, and I don't like to hype up ayahuasca too much, because I do think people romanticize it, and they don't think about the fact that it's going to put you on your ass, especially if you are not prepared to do all of the work that is required for you to do it, because anything taken in the wrong context can be unhealthy. So I try my best not to romanticize it, but that is what it did for Candice.
That's what it did for Candice. And I'm asking these questions because I just recently went to Peru. It did not end how I didn't really have a lot of expectations, but I think one of the things was that I was going to stay the whole time for 7 days, and I did not. I planned to sit with it for four times. That was what was a part of the retreat. And I haven't decided if I'm going to blog about it. I was going to blog about it and do a whole thing, and now I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it. Well, just because, but I'm not against doing it again, but I wanted to get your perspective because I sat with it once. And when I sat with it, my intentions, the intention that I gave before I drank the medicine, it showed up, and I was able to work through some things in that 3.5 hour ceremony. However, my environment, the people that were in the group with me, the facilitators, the shamans, something wasn't right for me. I could not relax completely. I did not feel safe in the environment to go deeper. And therefore, I ended up taking a boat out of there 4 days early. And that experience was crazy because it almost felt like a get out situation. And so it was scary. It was scary. And I was just like, wow, how did I end up here? But I learned a lot about myself. I did learn from the medicine, but it's just an experience I will never forget. And so when I ask you, I'm assuming that you sat with it 12 times, you felt safe in those environments. And was that a big part of it for you, how you were able to continue to sit with it and go deeper?
Well, the shaman told me when I need to die, give myself permission to die. So that looked like I know what I'm here for. And that's it.
Okay.
And probably the 7th time, this past time, one of the shamans came up to me and I was like fighting the air like this. I was fighting and I was cussing. And the next day, everybody was laughing, but I was dead ass serious. I was dead serious. Okay, I was like, listen, you come over here, I'm gonna fight your ass too. Step back. I'm vomiting, throwing up and everything, but fighting and punching the air because that's how much anger came up in me. So there is a necessity to feel safe.
Okay.
It's also a necessity to dissect why you don't feel safe. Because it's completely possible that the environment may have been safe, but a version of you didn't feel safe. And that's the version of you that you allowed to surface, listen to, and leave. If you left, you were supposed to leave. That's just the bottom line.
Right. I don't have regrets for leaving.
And that version still deserves to be scrutinized.
Yeah.
What we learn is that we have the tendency to manipulate ourselves.
Okay.
So just because a version of me says that she's afraid doesn't mean that she's afraid. This is how ego works. Alan Watts calls the ego a little rascal because the ego will act and put on whatever mask it needs to make you do what it wants you to do. So if the ego says, I'm scared, everything in the body's gonna be like, oh yeah, you really scared. This is not a safe environment. It's probably people in the bushes about to come get you. The ego and the body is going to allow you to come up with all these thoughts, all of these projections to get you to do what it wants you to do. And your job is to say, hold on, you don't have that much control. I have this much control. Let's scrutinize this. Let's figure out what's really happening. Where does this stem from? Where is it rooted within me? Is it possible that this is just me trying to manipulate myself out of learning more about myself? Is it possible that this is me trying to manipulate myself to stay comfortable in the same hell that I've been used to for all these years? Is this me sabotaging my way out of the healing experience that I know is on the other side of this fear? It's not enough to just say, I'm done. Even when you come home, it's still like, hold up, I thought about something. Now, you said you were scared. What was you scared of again?
Yeah.
And you get to dissect. Were you lying to yourself? Was this version of you lying to get out of the environment that was going to expose it? That was going to expose the truth about itself?
Yeah.
This is how internal conflict is really happening in the body with these multiple personalities, with these multiple versions. Everybody has their own agenda. Everybody has their own intentions. Everybody has their own goals. And not every version of us wants to heal. Not every version of us wants to evolve. And so we have to be real clear on who we allow to steer the boat. But again, if you left, you were supposed to leave. The way that the medicine of ayahuasca works is it continues to work.
Yeah.
One session is like 10 years of therapy. So whatever you got from the session, you got what you were supposed to get. And then the work still continues.
The work still continues. And yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad it, like you said, it's still working. It still kind of surfaces here and there. And then, yeah, like I am still left with that experience of being like, what happened there? What happened back there?
Yeah.
What was good? What was perceived as bad? And then just, I think for me, I'm just happy that I am able to look at it differently and still willing to experience it again if it's needed.
Yeah. Because what you experienced is not uncommon. To leave is not uncommon.
I found out that later.
That is not. Oh my God. Throughout all the ceremonies I've ever gone to, there's always at least 5 people that's like, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah.
My second time, I was like, why am I here? Like, what is really happening? Are we doing this on purpose? It would be 3 a.m. and we would be sitting outside looking at the stars like, are we really doing this on purpose? Because it's not fun. It sounds fun because it's been romanticized so much, but it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's painful and it sucks. There's nothing cute about it.
Yeah.
And even this past one of the ladies I got really close to, she had a beautiful experience. The last ceremony, she said, what am I doing? I cannot believe I'm here. I think these people are against me. I think they're doing something within my body. All of these fearful projections started to come up. That is her body fighting the evolution that it knows is on the other side of that last ceremony. And so it's just important for everybody to be conscious of when the version of us that tries to hinder our progress shows up, and to also remember that that is normal. It's still the body trying to protect itself.
Yeah.
Because healing is painful as well. It's not fun. So when you start that healing process, you're going to go through all of the emotions that are not natural to what you feel, comfort. And so the body is basically saying, I've never allowed you to feel this before. I got to protect you. And if I have to give you fear to do it, if I have to give you a personality or identity or persona that makes you feel unsafe, because that'll be what you need to get out of the environment, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So now you have the body working against your intentions just to keep you safe. We have to be able to dissect when that's happening.
So I'll be able to continue to do that.
Yeah.
As the days go on. Going back to Candice. Going back to Candice. Just and this, I mean, you can tell me who wants to answer this, but I'm speaking to your 7 years of sobriety and how you kind of mentioned, things become trendy. Sobriety becomes trendy. Even healing is trendy now, and people are doing it and making brands out of it, personal brands and careers, and to me, that sounds like that's just diluting the real work and the real work that goes into that. Have you seen that, and how does that affect you for someone who I'm imagining 7 years? It's a daily conversation with the version of you that was addicted to alcohol. Does that trigger you, or how does it make you feel in your journey?
Yeah, It doesn't trigger me when I do see people, I guess, glorifying the sober experience without having addictive behaviors that they really need to get sober from. I do notice that it is a social media trend to express how sober they are and how long they've been sober. And I don't think that it's sinister, but I do think that it's an unconsciousness that they hold where you being sober because you just want to, because you just can, because you just change your mind. It's more of abstinence, because when your friends come in town the next day, it's like, oh, I'm gonna drink today, or I'm gonna drink the next few weeks, or I'm gonna drink the next year, I'll stop again next year. That's not sobriety. That's abstinence.
Okay.
And a person who is in their sobriety journey is a person that is dying if they don't start the journey. And my intention is not to tell people if you want to use certain language. I'm not here to police people's language. But I do believe that there's a level of unconscious disrespect of the people who are dying every day just to be sober for 12 hours. The people who have to lose everything just to go and check themselves into rehab treatment facilities. The people who are in front of alcohol liquor stores crying because they don't want to drink, but they can't fight the urge. They can't fight the craving. The people who are smoking to escape because they're deathly afraid of feeling their emotions. The people who are drinking or doing any type of hard drug because they are escaping from feeling all of the trauma and the wounds and the pain that they feel daily. It's cute to be able to say, oh, I haven't been drinking for 7 weeks. That's cute. But you're going to drink in a few days. So
I get what you're saying.
the language dilutes the intentionality of how people are dying to stay sober. And I don't think people are conscious of that. I think that it's cute language that allows them to unconsciously dismiss what people are really going through, to be able to use the terminology of sobriety to say that they're sober.
Speaking of dismissing things, do you mind if I bring up the topic that 19 Keys interview and the therapist that was on there? And I only saw it from the feedback that you gave of the clip. And yes, honey, because it needed to be there. That you needed to, not to say you needed to say something, but I'm grateful that you said something, because from that clip, it was kind of wild how maybe they were just far removed from what it really means to heal yourself. And how they were kind of dismissing people's actual experiences and how they were able to do so on such a large platform. And it's becoming, there's a lot of platforms that they build an audience, they know a little bit about a bunch of things, and they're associated with things and they look good, but it's just not enough. It's not, what we really need to be hearing. And so when you saw that, what was kind of ignited in you, and you made sure you said something and you spoke out for many people who needed you.
When I saw it, because I've worked with Keys before. He invited me to his tour when he was in Houston. So we also have a mutual friend. So we've had acquaintance throughout some time. And then the counselor that was on his show, I had seen some of her work. And I think it's necessary to also acknowledge that a person can have knowledge in areas, and it doesn't mean that everything that they say is wrong or bad. But that interview was an example of what happens when you have emotionally void people leading conversations about emotional healing that don't tend to their own emotions. Because had that been a conversation with emotionally sound individuals, then a lot more compassion would have been in the tone of the conversation.
Yeah.
And it lacked that. And what I know is there's too many of us who do not feel worthy, that do not feel seen, that do not feel loved or acknowledged. And if you are holding the title of being ordained to hold people's hearts and hold people's traumas, you are not allowed to dismiss their experience because you don't agree with it. And what being a therapist, a spiritual teacher, a practitioner requires is for you to be able to hold such a safe, guarded space that allows you to see the humanity of a person, even if it doesn't resonate with your spirit. Where you take you out of the picture and everything becomes about them and their personal experiences and how you can witness them in a way that allows them to heal without condemning their hurts and their pains and judging them in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable with the healing process in general. And when I saw thousands of people commenting and saying how dismissed they felt, when I had therapists in my inbox saying things like they had clients booking them saying, am I emotionally fragile because I've allowed myself to be gaslit in the past? That tells me that there has to be a separate voice that allows some level of reason and compassion into the conversation, because there was no compassion in that conversation. And
The message will go over people's head.
There's just too many people who are suffering, and our job is to witness people. Our job is to love people where they are and hold space for people where they are. It don't have to resonate with my spirit. If it happened to you, then my job is to witness your wounds and make you feel so safe in pouring out your wounds that you know that you can leave it here on the table. And then after I guide you in pouring out your wounds and pouring out all of that poison out of your spirit, then I can build you up on how to become stronger, how to embody your power, how to stand firm in your essence. But people have to get all of that poison out of their bodies first.
They have to.
They have to.
Yeah. It reminds me of, as we're speaking, it reminds me of the conversation of Black people wanting their reparations. Is that what it's called? And how there's some people who have opinions. You're like, man, get over it. We can't keep blaming the white man, and we just need to get to it. And it's like, yes, let's move forward. Let's not wait on anything from the white man. However, let's not dismiss how we got here, how we got to the point of really wanting some reparations and deserving some reparations. And it's just one of those conversations that requires more people to interject so that we can get a full idea of what's going on in the community.
That level of dismissing also dismisses the fragility of the human experience. Life is difficult, and it's really hard, and it can be really painful. And if we tell people, oh, you're just supposed to get over it, you're supposed to be mentally strong. Well, damn, I don't get to cry in the process too. I don't get to feel my emotions in the process too. If I feel my emotions, now all of a sudden I'm weak. If I don't acknowledge what's happening in my body, if I don't acknowledge the emotions that I feel, what happens? You turn into an alcoholic like Candice Love. because you bypassed all of the emotions that are now being stored in the liver and now that are manifesting in emotions that you don't have anything to do with. And you can ignore these things all day long, but at some point the truth of who you are and the truth of the versions of yourself that you refuse to acknowledge will surface. Now, would you rather acknowledging the truth of who you are at 35, or you want to wait until you in your 60s and you have a midlife crisis because you've compartmentalized and put all of these things to the side because they weren't of value? They didn't depict a person that was mentally tough. Either that, or you're going to spend lifetimes coming back, attempting to heal the same wounds and traumas over and over again. And if you just give yourself permission to acknowledge all of you that exists, you don't have to go through that unnecessary process.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. We're running out of time. And I feel like there's one more thing that I want to speak about before you leave.
Okay.
Okay. Before we get out of here, let's just touch on this. I feel like we kind of touched on it just now, but talking about just the you sent me this note about rigid ideology and the healing process, the healing journey, what it's supposed to look like, and these standards, unrealistic, unhealthy standards that many of us are wanting to uphold through the process, and kind of just like breaking down the rigid way in which we feel we're supposed to be handling this. What does that look like when you work with your clients, or when you are working with yourself or feeling these things? What have you gone through that, you know, makes us all feel like it's supposed to look this way? Like we're supposed to have crystals, and we're supposed to have a head wrap, and we're supposed to just, you know, not have a fly pair of sunglasses. We just supposed to just be incense, or, you know, in a headstand. Like, what does it look like?
It's messy. If you pay attention to everything in the universe, society, nothing is perfect. And people feel like they can use perfectionism to allow themselves to heal. They feel like they can use logic to force their way into the healing journey. And it's not realistic. And one of the things that I noticed that's coming up now is the conversation of forgiveness, where it's black and white. Either you're going to forgive or not forgive. And either you're forgiving or you're resentful, and you're not forgiving at all. And it creates this rigid mentality where people have to be black and white. And the healing experience is not black and white. It's not linear. It's not up and down. And what will allow people to heal a lot faster is if they just accept where they are. And if they don't force themselves to be and look and do a certain way. You'll see a lot of times people have a laundry list of spiritual practices. They've created an identity in their spiritual practices, as opposed to acknowledging that things happen in ebbs and flows. Just like forgiveness, one day you may feel really forgiving, and the next day you may change your fucking mind. There is a spectrum of forgiveness, which I spoke about on the platform before, but the messiness is acknowledging that something is happening here. I don't have words for it. I don't like how it looks. I don't like how it feels, but I'm not going to try to perfect my way in what I think it should look and feel like. I'm going to allow it to be what it is. There are some people that it will take a miracle for them to be able to forgive, because life has been so difficult for them. But if I say everybody needs to forgive, they're going to try to fit themselves into that mold. And maybe in this lifetime, forgiveness is not on the table for them. Maybe in this lifetime, it's them learning how to crucify the desire for vengefulness that has surfaced because they won't forgive. That's messy. It's not as black and white as forgive or don't forgive.
Yeah.
That's like, well, oh shit. Well, what does forgiveness actually look like?
Yeah.
And what I've recognized, especially with this conversation of forgiveness, is instead of making the conversation about if I forgive you or not, let me acknowledge what the pain that you have caused me to feel. Let me acknowledge what darkness has come out of me because of that pain. What vengefulness has come out of me, what resentment has come out of me, what type of hellish fire has come out of my being based on the behavior and how you treated me. Now I have an opportunity to not focus on forgiveness, but to crucify all of that rage that came out of me, all of the darkness that came out of me. Now I have the ability to say to God, I'm holding on to something that a part of me wants to feel. I want to feel that rage. I want to hurt this person like they hurt me. And I can't even believe that I'm allowing this level of vengefulness in my body. I need help, and I damn near need a miracle for you to take it away from me. And I need to crucify all of this low vibrational energy that lives within my being, all of the mold that lives within my heart that I didn't even know was there until this person hurt me. I have to crucify all of these emotions and darkness and hellish fire that is coming up out of my body so I can learn how to forgive myself for even allowing this level of poison to infiltrate my being. That process of forgiveness ain't so black and white anymore, because now a person has just shown me how much I have the capacity to embody darkness, to become dark, to become the hell that I'm so afraid to go to. Now the person that has hurt me has also shown that I've pitched a tent in my own hell and I've called it heaven. So the aspect of us healing requires a lot of messiness. It requires a lot of confusion, and it requires us to feel like we're taking steps back. Whereas if it's black and white, it's like I'm moving straight forward into the healing process. I'm shedding layers. It's looking good. My skin is glowing. But then you recognize that it may actually take me a year to even recognize the poison that I've allowed to live in my body just because another person hurt me. When we are rigid in our consciousness, that means when we don't give ourselves permission to adopt healthier perspectives, when we hold on to narratives of suffering, when we live in the victim mentality, when we don't give ourselves permission to see what's happening on the other side of the street, when we don't broaden our perspectives and allow more healthier, balanced ideologies in, when multiple truths can exist at the same time, that is a more healthier psyche. A rigid psyche will never allow you to believe multiple truths. Even if you hurt me right now, the multiple truth is that you may have had great reason for the behavior that you did. And the other truth could be that you were wrong in that behavior because it hurt me deeply. But it may not have even been your intention. There's so many layers of truth that can exist within the storyline of how people hurt one another. But if it's rigid on you hurt me, so you're wrong. Not you hurt me because someone just hurt you 2 months ago and you aren't even conscious of how you're showing up in the world and spewing your toxicity on other people. They don't say hurt people for no reason. So when multiple truths can exist at the same time, I can have compassion for you and I can hold you accountable and acknowledge what you did wasn't okay. And I don't have to be so rigid on you owe me an apology. Now I don't even need your apology because I understand when people are miserable, they battle themselves through other people. And I can create distance and not make myself the center of your reality. And I can nurture and validate my own experience. That is a healthy psyche that can see all pieces that are on the table. And it's not so rigid And that rigidity is what stops us and hinders us from being able to heal, grow, and evolve.
Yeah. There's one more question that came from that, because I'm asking for someone that I know that I want to take this back to. Being rigid, or some form of it, like say you grew up in the hood and you had to be rigid in the sense of, I'm not giving people a benefit of the doubt. I'm focusing exactly this is my mode of operation, and for so long that is what got you to where you are, and now you are out of the hood and you know things are good. And now to go to the next level, you have to realize that being rigid and having that one way of surviving and being no longer serves you, because it took you here. It can't take you the next place. How do you start to kind of talk to yourself and rewire and say, okay, is it kind of going back to the dying, that version of yourself dying?
And then also giving a version of yourself a break. We speak about all the time how we're so exhausted, but we have this one personality that we are driving into the ground to protect us. And what is there to protect us from? We don't even need the protection anymore. So there's versions of us that we have created as slaves to do our dirty work for us, as opposed to having more love and compassion for ourselves and saying, you know what? The environment is safe now. And I don't need you to take the front of these personalities anymore. I don't need you to be the altar that is 100% present anymore.
Yeah.
I can gift you with permission to rest.
Got it.
And also, I can work with you, because when we go to therapy, this is how people lie unconsciously when they go to therapy. They'll bring one version of them to therapy. What about all the other 12 personalities that need to be in therapy too?
Yeah.
But if you can identify those personalities, you'll bring the one to therapy that don't really even need it. So that version of you needs to be front and center in therapy, so we can dissect why even in a safe environment, you still feel like you got to protect yourself.
Yeah.
I need to do whatever in my power to remind this version that you are safe. And you don't have to embody these behaviors to protect us anymore. I have the tools now. But what happens is when a person doesn't trust themselves, they also don't trust that they have the tools to embody their power to heal, grow, and evolve. So if they don't trust themselves, they will rely on the personalities that they created when they were in survival mode. So this also goes back to, how do I learn how to foster trust within myself? How do I build strength in my intuitive compass again? How do I remind the versions of me that have been ordained to protect me that I have the tools to protect myself now? I can gift them with the opportunity to retire and rest, and also work with them about what their triggers are, what their traumas are, what their wounds are. Because if this wound was created at age 17, the 21-year-old doesn't carry that wound.
Yeah.
So that is your own person that deserves its own intentional love, witnessing, honoring, therapy. And we have to bring that person back home to itself so it can embody its truest nature, which is nobody.
Nobody. That was a perfect ending note. Thank you, Nobody, for being here. Thank you for letting Candice speak as well. I really appreciate There's going to be a lot of medicine in this.
Thank you for having us,
yes,
too.
Always. This was beautiful. I really am grateful. I want to say thank you for sitting with me and sharing so much. I want you know how we normally do. Look here at that camera and share, what you have going on, your book, any retreats, all the things.
Yes. All right, y'all. My name is Nobody, aka Candyss Love. You can follow me at Candyss Love on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok. You can also order my book, Remember Who the Fuck You Are. This book is designed to help you heal, grow, and evolve, and remember to embody your power. My second book, by the time this airs, will also be out. It's titled Things I Probably Shouldn't Say, but fuck it, I'm angry. There is a lot of information in that book on how to heal anger and resentment, how to embody it. And it's also permission to speak the truth of your story, even if people who played a part in your story may feel a way about it. You can also check that out on my Instagram and on my website. My husband and I host retreats, Remembering Me in Tulum, Mexico. You guys can sign up for that. Or if you are in Texas or in the U.S., you can also sign up for our healing retreat in Texas as well.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you for being here, love, sister. And hope you guys got from this everything that we did. And we'll see you next time.